Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of One Another Marriage with Dr. David and Theresa Mabry, where we seek to strengthen relationships for greater satisfaction and fulfillment and for greater impact on the world around you. Those are our goals, and that's why we're here. And we welcome you. And I welcome Theresa Mabry.
Thank you.
Well, hello, Theresa Mabry.
Well, hello, David Mabry. Oh, my goodness. Folks, I don't know.
This may be an interesting
We're-
podcast today.
Just because,
It's summertime.
I don't know, it's summertime. We're both a little slap happy, maybe.
Okay, full disclosure, real
Yeah.
quick,
Go ahead.
is that I've been not under the weather,
Mm-hmm.
but I felt something kind of coming on, like it's trying real hard,
Mm-hmm.
like it's trying.
The germs have invaded.
The germs have invaded, and don't worry, you can't
and
catch
your immune
anything
system is
via podcast, so don't
is
worry out there, folks.
working.
But I have a little hot toddy right now. It's just helping just soothe my throat
Mm-hmm.
a little bit, and so
Hopefully no slurping.
hopefully no slurping.
If you hear some slurping, though,
But the-
David is having his hot tea.
But the ingredients of the hot toddy may help us have just a fabulous, fabulous podcast today. So in light of that, what are we talking about today?
In light of that, yeah, so this episode, we are actually going to be referring to the Gottman Institute. And we have referred to Dr. John Gottman before in his research. And the Gottman Institute is one of the leading research and marriage education organizations. And so they've given us things that we've unpacked before, like the 4 horsemen, as of the most recent in our podcast.
That's right. Go back
About-
2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks. Those would be the predictors of divorce, right? Things that we don't want to do. Well, today we're on a little bit more of a positive note, and and today, today we're actually going to be looking at 6 hours to a better relationship. That's what they title it as,
Mm-hmm.
and we're just going to be giving you some of their helpful hints. These are also some items and things that that we have stressed in different pieces and parts of our previous podcasts. But today we're just kind of unpacking it all at once. And so, yeah, that is
Yeah.
our episode.
Yeah, today's 6 hours to a better relationship.
Yeah.
And this is one that we selected a few weeks ago
Mhm.
because, of course, Gottman has been, we've been fans of his work, his institute's work, and because they've contributed so much to healthy marriages and for folks to figure out how to have better relationships. And whenever we can find, and so we'd encourage you out there, one another couples, to pick up any book by John Gottman, and you're going to really enjoy it.
Mhm.
So, but if you don't, you're going to pick up every once in a while something from the Gottman Institute by listening to this podcast, because
Sure.
we've learned a tremendous amount. And every time we coach a couple, it comes out in what
Mhm.
we teach and train and kind of coach couples through
Right.
healthier behaviors.
Right.
And so that's a good.
And there's also
thing.
going to be times and opportunities where, as part of our podcast, we're going to point you towards some other resources, and that could be through books or through just different marriage and relationship educators that we have also found
That's right.
good to apply to our coaching, speaking, different things like that. So, and then we have our own things
That's
that we
right.
have put together, and we'll be unpacking those as well. So, but that is this episode. But before we begin, it is puzzle time.
Yeah, puzzle
and
time.
You have the puzzle today, and
Yeah.
I'm excited to find out. And we are for everyone. We're just reminding we are almost to the end of July. Crazy.
Yeah, isn't that
Crazy,
crazy that
crazy.
here we are
So-
toward the end of July, and
Yeah.
and this is actually podcast number 15.
Nice.
Yeah, woohoo! And so, but let me share this before I share any kind of puzzle for this segment.
Is this going to go along with the puzzle?
No.
Am I going to have to keep you in control today?
Yes, because here's the deal.
All right.
Let's go back to my hot toddy.
Okay.
The ingredients in my hot toddy, one
Lots.
of those ingredients
Mm-hmm.
is actually a honey habanero that we bought at a
Oh
farmer's
my gosh,
market.
did you put the creamed honey in there?
I did.
Wow. Babe.
And
Okay.
I'm telling you right now, folks, it's helping.
Okay.
It's spicy.
It's
We're going to have a spicy podcast
it's
today.
a spicy podcast. It's like Spicy Uno.
It's
If
creamed
you've ever
honey.
played yeah, so yeah, we
Creamed honey.
creamed honey. We got it at our local farmers market,
Mm-hmm.
and I had bought some creamed honey. We had never tried it before. I bought it off of them back at the end of May. These same people,
Mm-hmm.
and then at the end of June, we went to that same farmers market, and they were back. And
Mm-hmm.
so this time we got blueberry
Yes.
and lemon,
yes.
and then we got this habanero. And
Mhm.
basically, they take habanero peppers, right? And I don't know,
It's a habanero powder
powder.
is
Okay.
what they do, and they
And
mix
they
it in with their
mix
creamed.
it in with the honey.
honey.
And what they do is they make this creamed honey. It's really good. It's really cool. It's just like
Mhm.
spreading butter.
So we put it on chicken the other night.
Yeah, so we
and
grilled with it.
Grilled with it, and
Mhm.
that made it was good. I don't know that I did it quite right, but it's because
Well,
it
I
wasn't.
think we were afraid to try too much because we didn't want to make it so spicy that
Mhm.
that we couldn't eat the chicken.
Yeah, and
right.
I don't mind spicy things at all.
Right.
I
I
don't mind
do.
them in
My
short.
preference is not to have as much. Your preference is to have a little bit more. But that's
Mhm.
hilarious. I did not realize that you had added it to
I did.
your tea.
So it's adding to our adventure today. But puzzle today.
Okay.
I'm actually going to pull an audible. I'm going to
Uh-oh.
I'm going to call an audible here,
Okay.
and I'm going to change it up. So obviously we do our puzzles to encourage our one another couples out there
Mhm.
to regularly touch base on important things.
Right.
And today's podcast, 6 Hours to a Better Relationship,
Mhm.
really is exactly what puzzles is about.
Exactly.
It's touching base in meaningful ways. Well, one of the items on the 6 hours is what I want to call an audible on, and I'm going to change gears, and I'm not going to do a puzzle today. I do have a puzzle which has something to do with the guts of our toilet,
Okay.
but I'm not going to share that today. And I'm
And
just
the
gonna leave
crowd
that
goes
hanging.
wild. Ah, we're so glad he's not sharing about the guts of the toilet.
That's right. So I'm having to replace.
And then there's others that might be like, no, David, please tell us more.
I have to replace the guts of one of our toilets in the tank. And
Yeah.
there's a puzzle
just
that goes
time.
behind that. But
Okay.
this is what I'm going to do.
What are you doing?
I'm just going to leave that out there. People to wonder what in the world is the puzzle. So instead of that, I'm going to share an appreciation and admiration for you,
Uh-oh. Okay.
because that's going to be one of the things that we'll hit upon. And
Mhm.
so my admiration today and appreciation for you and for us this fits with our Love Step goals too, and I'll circle
Mhm.
back to that.
Mhm.
But what I'm encouraged by is that you have stayed consistent in your reading through the Bible in a year,
Mm.
and that's awesome, and I'm proud of you.
Yes.
And you are on day
194.
194. You're actually on pace.
Yes.
So, and I'm super proud of you,
Thank
and
you.
that's encouraging to see, and your diligence. And when I see you reading, and I try not to interrupt you.
I know.
But I'm like an ADHD child sometimes and need to get your attention. And so, yeah, I'm very proud of you for that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yes.
You're
It has
welcome.
been good. I'm proud of myself too.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I've tried this before and I've given
Mhm.
up within the first month. I've never made it very far.
And a lot of folks
Um,
out there who have, not everyone out there maybe who's listening,
Mhm.
we understand if you don't have a faith background, we encourage you to explore that, and
Mhm.
we would encourage it. And we also know that a lot of our one another couples are Christ followers, and
Right.
it can resonate also with the goal of reading through the Bible in a year.
Well,
as-
and this one's interesting because it's the chronological order. And
yeah.
so
okay. Yes, that's right.
That's the caveat to this one, is that it's it jumps you around
Mhm.
a little bit because you're actually reading it as it's getting unpacked in the historical reference.
Mm-hmm.
So, like right now, I'm in the Psalms, but it's not like I started with Psalm 1 and we're heading all the way through. I'm in a section right now where we're in the Psalms, but like in 2 days, we're going to flip back to Isaiah and pick back up in Isaiah
Wow. Yeah.
in the middle of Isaiah, like Isaiah 28. You know,
Yeah.
so it's like, it's really cool to just kind of like
Yeah.
be able to read it in that order. But thank
That's
you.
awesome.
Yeah.
So
Thanks.
with this tool, by the way, is it just to remind everybody to go back to? We have an early podcast on Love Step Goals,
Mm-hmm.
which is a tool to help couples touch base on a regular basis. Which today, with this 6 hours to a better relationship, lines up perfectly with it.
Mhm.
If we can encourage couples to just be intentional with your connecting with one another, you'll build intimacy, and intimacy being the broadest definition of the term, right? It's not just physical closeness, but it's
Right.
intimacy in your relationship. And so one of the components with Love Step Goals, that daily communication tool, is the edify or encourage one another.
Right.
And that piece is actually to take out time to point out not just, hey, you have nice hair today, or
Mhm.
I like that outfit. Those
You
things
have
should,
nice hair every day, babe.
I do. Baldness becomes me. It's
If you don't know David, he's a clean shaven head. So, yeah.
That's right. Just picture it in your brain. A goateed guy with a bald head. I
Yeah.
fit in with much of the population
Yeah.
of men.
Right.
So thank you for, I was on a serious roll there.
I
and
know,
all of
I'm
a sudden
sorry.
You threw.
I just threw it in. I can't help it. I told you. We prefaced the whole podcast with, we're each just a little slap happy.
Yep.
And therefore, some of that's going to come out today.
It's going to be a good day.
All right,
It's gonna
but
be a
let's
good
get
day.
going.
Yeah, absolutely. So the 6 hours is broken down into 6 sections, not even with one another.
Mm-hmm.
And so where do we start, honey?
Yeah, so actually we're going to start with, let's just start with the appreciation and admiration, okay?
Yeah.
So, because you've already touched upon it. So, and basically that whole concept, right, that we need to find daily appreciations for our partner. You need to be able to notice something, a specific trait or something that you admire in your partner, those positive traits. And when you... And if you don't have the opportunity to tell them right at that moment face to face, take the opportunity to like write it down in a journal or, put it in a note in your phone or whatever, but be able to come back to it to where you can pull it up and say, hey, I just really want to say that I appreciate you or admire you for this. Just exactly what David just did for myself there, and giving that appreciation and admiration. If you focus on those positive qualities and traits and things that you find your partner doing, it really will outweigh the negative. And when you share them then with your partner, it makes them feel valued. And that's the whole concept.
That's right. And I love the intentionality. And this does take intentionality.
Yeah.
It's easy to neglect, but it's with a little bit of work, a little bit of working this relational muscle,
Mm-hmm.
you can pick up experience with
Mm-hmm.
how to do this on a regular basis. And this is recommended for 7 days a week and
Right.
5 minutes every day. Just 5 minutes
5 minutes
every
a
single
day.
day.
Mm-hmm.
That's 35 minutes per week. That's 35 minutes of the 6 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And taking 5 minutes every day to intentionally turn and appreciate or admire your partner for one thing or the other.
Right.
And you may be thinking, maybe, honey, you may have some suggestions for this, and we can brainstorm some suggestions. But if someone is saying, not to be mean, but they may say, I can't think of anything. It's like I said I ran out of admiration. Is that possible? Or how do we tackle it because we know we've talked to couples, it's like, okay, again today, I don't mean to be mean. I love my spouse, but
I
come up
think
with
that,
another thing.
The one thing that we'll hear from a lot of couples is that, we just haven't seen each other today. We don't, we just don't get to spend a lot of time together, or we're both working or whatever. And unfortunately, I feel like For a long time, our culture has gotten into this really bad habit of we're just so busy. We're so busy. And it's become such a normal kind of response where I feel like we hear from a lot of couples, yeah, we're just so busy and we just didn't get a chance to really see each other, and things. And I think once again, it's working a muscle that is underdeveloped, right?
Yeah.
And we may, like, I'm not as good at voicing all of my appreciations towards you as you are to me.
Which I was going to ask the question about, what if the second follow-up to that was, what if someone says, well, it's not my love
It's
language.
not my love language.
It's like,
right?
well, I don't, I don't
Yeah.
share, or my partner appreciations is not their love language, so it's going to fall on deaf ears.
Right.
Which to that we would say,
well,
everyone needs appreciation, admiration to build intimacy and be connected with one another.
Well, and I think it can go back to a lot of people can resonate with their job, right? Their workplace. And you may not be like, I am not a words of affirmation person. It is not one of my top love languages, right? But at the same time, I also don't want to go work a job for most of my year, right? And never hear a praise about something that I've done well. I think as bosses and employers, you really, this is a quality within all work levels. If you don't find those things to compliment and encourage your employees on, it can go in the negative direction where there could be a little bit more of the, angstiness or the gossiping or just whatever happens because we don't feel that value. We don't feel like what we're doing. So just put that now into the context of your marriage, right? So this is your partner in life. This is the person, I'm your person, you're my person. If I never admire or appreciate you, then, the same thing's going to happen. You're going to start feeling undervalued. You're going to tend to go a little bit, Theresa never tells me anything, good about myself. So why would I tell her? And then, and so now we're fighting against each other, and we didn't even really mean to fight against each other. So I think it is working that underdeveloped muscle that not everybody does a good job at, but man, the rewards are just so beneficial when you do.
Absolutely. You hit upon a couple things here. First,
I hit upon a lot. I don't know if we're going to get all the way through this, hun.
We are going to make it. We are going to cheer us on, folks. Root us on to victory. We're going to make this in 45 minutes because here's the thing. By now, some of you who are listening, and this is what I do with podcasts, by the way, so I'm assuming other people do it. You actually set a time frame. Like, I know this podcast that I'm listening to lasts X amount of minutes. Let's say it's a 30-minute podcast, and I say, well, I have 30 minutes to do this task. Either it's on the treadmill, or it's I'm going to weed for 30 minutes, or I have 30 minutes to fix dinner. We're going to have dinner.
Do whatever.
And so I don't know about you folks, but that's how I operate when I'm listening to a podcast. I have a morning routine with podcast, like before I start my workday, and I'll know exactly what I can fit in. Right. So we're going to do it, honey.
Okay.
So to that point, disconnection is a problem.
Yes.
For many couples. And when couples say, individuals say, hey, we just don't see each other, and they get so busy, then that's another podcast as well, right? Where we're talking about, and we've dealt with before, and we deal with couples with the balance between overconnected and disconnected. And you need to have connectivity that's balanced.
But even in your busyness, you can still appreciate your partner. I mean, my goodness, if you've had any amount of time together, go back and pull from the reservoir of of time together. And some days it may just be, you know what? I appreciate your faithfulness in this relationship. That's an appreciation. Like, we don't always have to see them doing an active something.
Yeah.
And if you don't have time together, because truly there are some couples who one's on second shift, one's on first. Yeah, you may you may not get to see each other until your day offs, coincide. But
now, as a person with the love language of appreciations, I value the long-term and the short-term appreciations. It doesn't always have to be something just in the moment, but I appreciate the way that you have parented over the years, and we have adult children, right? So it's things like that, but then also just being able to be intentional and think through this. So yeah, admiration and appreciation. Now, before we leave this one, we have to point out that two things, and this could have come from Gottman or somewhere. There are two things that need to be present in a relationship on a regular basis. And number one is our daily appreciations, positives through appreciations. And the second thing is looking forward to. And that's going to come out in some of these behaviors as well. So those you looking forward to, goal setting, always planning. Healthy couples are always planning, looking forward to short-term, mid-range, long-term goals. So, but let's move to the two short-term or short time-framed behaviors with the 6 hours. So the next thing that we want to cover that the Gottman Institute suggests to us are partings. So partings is taking 2 minutes a day through the work week, 5 days, 5 working days, 2 minutes every day. It's 10 minutes per week. And you have an intentional partings time. So happy couples, they make an effort to learn one thing that is happening in their partner's life that day before they say goodbye in the morning. So the goal here is to ask questions and to learn about the exciting and those not so exciting things about your partner's day. Right. So it's touching base on sometimes we've called this new information, we call it's business items, but also just just quick hits before you part for the day, making sure you're touching base on those important matters.
Yeah. And there could be somebody could be like, well, I'm not up at the same time when my spouse is leaving. Like they leave for work way earlier than I do. It also could be just when you do see each other or connect, sharing just about something that happened in your day, and then the other person taking notice of that and actually asking questions about it then. Yeah. Because I know that happens with us sometimes, is that I'm gone at 6:30 and you and I aren't always having a question or a conversation per se full on in the morning. But when I do return back from work, you're always asking, hey, did something happen, in your day or whatever? And then you take an interest in that. Yeah. And it doesn't take that long. Yeah. 2 minutes.
2 minutes. And you can mix that with the next one, right? Yeah. And so the next one, when you return from the day.
Yeah, would be reunions. So when you do return back together at the end of the day, sharing a hug and a kiss that lasts at least 6 seconds.
Yes.
It's funny to me. Like, I would love to know. They do a lot of research on couples, and it's like, yeah, I just can imagine, like, okay, everyone hug or kiss for let's start at 10 seconds. Okay, 7. All right, what about 6?
Okay.
How'd that all feel? I would just love to know the research behind this. So.
Has anyone ever been to a couples retreat where they tell you that you have to kiss each other for a certain amount of time? We've been to those. My gosh. And no offense, folks, to those that have maybe been to those.
It is uncomfortable for us. I don't like it.
We'll just, maybe you're listening and you're with the Mabrys on this. Right. So if you ever come to one of our events where we're speaking, we promise, we will never have you turn to each other in front of everyone else.
In front of everyone else.
And kiss for like 6 seconds. Right. The one I remember we went to, they said you have to kiss for at least like 30 seconds.
Oh, I don't know. It was a long amount of time. And it was like, okay.
Which, just to be clear, it's not the kissing that's the problem.
Right. It's in front of everybody else.
PDA.
It's in front of, it's just odd. Anyway, we need to come back. So reunions.
That's an important thing, though, hon. We had to talk about.
We did have to talk about, yeah.
Public displays of affection at marriage retreats, and our promise and pledge that if you come to one of ours, we're not going to do that. That's important. People need to know that about us.
We will tell you to do it on your own in private. we will encourage you to do this. We just don't want you to
Yep.
be doing it in front of us all the time.
Now I
So
will tell you
anyway.
that for this one, you could do it in front of the kids because
Oh, yeah.
we actually believe that modeling healthy physical touch in front of
Absolutely.
your children is appropriate physical
Yes.
touch. It's important for your children to
They
see.
need to see that.
Even your teens who go, "Ooh, gross, Dad.
Yeah.
Gross, Mom. What's going on with that?"
But this is, this ritual of connection, this is what makes it worth coming home to.
Mm-hmm.
When you know that you're going to be greeted, that each of you are going to come together, that you see this as being valuable, that you will have at least 6 seconds of a hug and a kiss, that you're going to share that. And then after that, you can have, they want you to have a stress reducing conversation, okay, for at least 20 minutes. So this would not be the time where you want to bring up conflict items, all right? So
Mhm.
you've just returned from your days of what, you've been gone, you've been apart, you return, you share this hug and kiss, and then you can have a conversation that they're encouraging you to at least have like 20 minutes. Now, we would call this would be where we would insert like our love step goals
Yes.
conversation.
Yes.
And we would also call this like couch time, which we
Yeah.
learned a long time ago, right?
Which share again what couch time is for
And
folks.
it's where you have deliberate time set apart, a lot of times taking place on the couch, hence couch time, where you are just completely focused on each other. You have, if children are in the house, you're training them and teaching them that this is mommy and daddy time to have. And okay, it may not get to 20 minutes depending upon the ages of the kids that you have, but it's important connection. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's just having that kind of conversation with each other, connecting on a lot of different levels, which go back and listen to our breakdown of our love step goals
Mm-hmm.
conversations to get those prompts, and so yeah.
And it's wonderful modeling for.
But it's
the
great
children.
modeling, yeah. And the whole concept of the physical touch, I mean, we have another one here that we're headed to actually that talks about physical touch, and so let's go ahead and you have another thought.
Let me put a punctuation on the end of this
Okay.
one for reunions at the end of your workday.
Yep.
I want to emphasize the stress-reducing conversation.
That's what I was just going to go to.
I believe that's good. Hey, we're on the same page.
Well, I was gonna go to affection, and then like we were gonna lump it together. But go ahead.
Okay, then I'll let you tie this in a minute.
Yeah.
Let me just tell you that stress-reducing conversations, though, I believe that needs to be something that you discuss as a couple and negotiate, if you will, or process. What is the most stress-reducing kind of conversation for me at the end of my day?
Mm.
And it's so, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
not to necessarily be stereotypical, but let's say that mom is like our situation.
Mm-hmm.
You were a full-time stay-at-home mom.
Right.
In fact, you homeschooled as well,
Mm-hmm.
and I would go away to the office, and so both of us were working a different kind of day, different stressors, but stressful nonetheless. And then we would come home. Well, you as a couple on that couch time, on this reunions time for that 20 minutes, sharing beforehand or establishing way before you start this habit as a couple, what is the most stress-free or stress-reducing kind of conversation to have with one another when we're together? For instance, are there topics that should not come up? Are there complaints that need to kind of stay at bay for a moment?
Mm-hmm.
Is it there are certain things, and just honor your spouse, and then later circle back around to those things if you feel like I really need to share this. Then maybe hold on to it until it's time for. But really, you may have to negotiate that a little bit.
Right.
And process how can you serve your spouse during that moment, but at the same time allow your stress to be reduced and kind of come back to the state of normal
Mm-hmm.
in your household after a long work day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. Good point, babe.
So on to affection.
On to
I
affection.
love this one. So I'll give the time frame and you
Mhm.
give the description, which would be, this is another 5-minute hit, but it's 7 days a week, 5
Mhm.
minutes every day. And this is actually toward the end of the day, it's affection, 35 minutes a week, 5 minutes a day, 7 days a week.
Right. So basically, they're reminding everyone to, before you would go to sleep, to make sure that you embrace, whether that's if you're both going to sleep at the same time, cuddling in bed, holding hands, giving a goodnight kiss. I mean, maybe one person's going to head to bed sooner than another, but you should always come together and share that moment of affection. And it's a great way to just kind of like let go of those minor stressors that maybe have built up during the day as well before you would head off to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So
those important to circle back around and have that cuddling time.
Yeah.
Sometimes the cuddling time can go a bit further, which is a good thing, where you build that sphere of your physical relationship with intimacy, sexual intimacy. And we hope and trust that you've been working on those other spheres of having touch of presence and touch of comfort throughout the day. And so, but this is part of that as well. These would fall into those, what we teach about physical closeness with one another,
Right.
and having that part of your relationship, that you are using this time to express affection for one another. For us, a habit that we have, we haven't talked about it in a long time, or we rarely. Do you realize that when
we're going to throw something in here? I don't know where he's headed, folks. I don't. Okay.
This is non-threatening.
Okay.
But do you realize that when we kiss goodnight, we kiss 3 times? We give three pecks when it's a normal, natural night, right? It's
that
so
is
our
funny.
affection. We do have a regiment, or a kind of a pattern every day, every night.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
Every night we give 3 kisses.
3 kisses. There you go.
And
I don't know.
I don't think it's corny, but I'm just going to say it. I've always seen that as a I love you. 3 kisses.
Aww.
I love you.
Aw, that's a really cool. I have not. I
I've
don't
always,
know that.
I've always noticed that.
I think maybe. I wonder sometimes, like subliminally, if I am noticing. It's like, okay, I've kissed, and then usually there's something else said, another kiss, and then there's something else, and then it's one final one, right? So
no, they're always 3 in a row, and it's like, that's our ritual, though.
That's funny.
I feel like that's our ritual.
And you think that's I love you. That's great.
It will come as our ritual. It will come after you have gotten yourself settled, because I've shared this before, but Theresa, she's like. She has to go through a whole pattern of like stand and crack her back. She has to get her pillow just right, has to get itchy. And I've compared it to this. My wife is not a dog, but you ever see those dogs who walk in circles around their bed?
All dogs.
All dogs do that.
Dogs.
Right. So dogs will do that, and then they'll get themselves, they'll
circle
lay down.
And they nest.
And then
they're
get up again, and then they do it again. Now, Theresa will do that. Now, I don't want hate mail. I'm not calling my wife.
Nor do I circle the bed, okay?
Although it seems like it. But I've laughed. See, I can tell this story because Theresa and I have laughed about this for years now, that I'll look at her, because how do I go to bed?
You just climb in, cover up. I mean, that's it.
It's done. I just go. What I do is I pull the covers over.
Yeah.
I lay down, and usually I'm out. I'm good.
You're close to being out right away. Not all the time, but you are close to being out right away. And I do. I have to get settled. Yeah. I call it my settling. I have to like settle. And
yes, you do.
And you wait for me. That's the funny thing.
Is
that you
can you tell that you can tell wait. That I wait.
Yes, and I even know it a lot of times. I'm always like, daggone it, he's just waiting over there. And there's sometimes I don't say anything, and then other times I get frustrated because I'm like, will you just stop it? Just like kiss me already, so I can like, I can do my thing and you can go on to sleep. But you're so funny because
I don't remember you ever telling me that.
No, I
you
haven't.
don't get impatient with me. You let me.
No, that conversation's going on in my brain. I'm having that on my own. But I appreciate the fact that you know me well enough that you wait until I am settled, and you don't mind. It's like it's the thing that I do. That you've come
cute.
To accept, and you think it's cute, and therefore you don't mind.
It's an admirable trait,
right?
And I don't mind waiting, but I do intentionally sit there and wait. And then once you're settled, I will lean over to you and 1, 2, 3 kisses, and it's not even intentional. It's out of it's our ritual.
It's our ritual. There you go.
So affection, that's a key one.
Affection, yeah.
5 minutes
so
every
here's
day.
what I want to say, though, about the reunions. So when you see each other after you've been apart, coming back, sharing a hug or a kiss, and then at the end of the day, before you're going to go to sleep, making sure that there's physical touch in some way, you're cuddling, it's a goodnight kiss. Both of those talk about the release of stress and the buildup of stress. And that goes back to that whole, the research based upon physical connection, physical touch, and that people need hugs.
Yes.
People need embraces.
Yes.
It really does. It does something to our body, to our brain. It stimulates a part of our brain that sets off the neurons, right? And it relieves stressors that we don't even realize that we have.
Yeah.
So those two people, those are huge. You cannot mistake the presence of physical touch with each other in a comforting way.
Yes.
Right? You've been apart, you're coming back together at the end of your day, sharing that time, even if tons of things are clawing at you. And the other thing that we would say is we have still shown each other that affection, even if we were in front of other people, not the PDA stuff we were talking about earlier, but, if you came straight from work to maybe there was an activity that the kids were involved in and the kids and I were already there, but when you came in and you and I would see each other for the first time during the day, it was at the end of the day, there was still a hug, a kiss, something that gave a presence, like we were showing presence to each other. So even if it's happening in front of other people, I think people notice that when they see other husbands and wives connecting in that way, they take notice.
Yeah.
I do think that. But anyway,
that's right.
The stressors, giving those hugs, giving that, I think it really does help relieve stressors that we don't even realize we have.
Let's review before we move to the last two.
Okay.
And so the review would be appreciations and admiration, which is 35 minutes per week. And you do that 7 days a week, 5 minutes a day.
That one needs to happen every day.
Every day. And then 5 days a week, you do the next two, which is partings at the beginning of your day. You have 2 minutes just to touch base about one goal from the day. And then reunions. At the end of the day, you take 20 minutes out, 5 days a week. So 1 hour and 40 minutes. You take time out to be able to touch base on stress reducing conversation. So, and you make sure you have that kiss that lasts at least 6 seconds.
Hug and kiss.
Hug and kiss.
Yep.
That lasts. So partings, reunions, appreciations, admirations, and then the final one that we covered already, affections, which is that end of the night cuddling or good night kiss. That's
and that
5
happens
minutes
every day.
That's right.
Yeah.
The next one.
We're down to 2.
We love this one. We love this one. Every couple should have a date night once a week. And we count that. The Gottman Institute would tell you 2 hours once a week. You have a date night. It's called a date night, but it can happen. It's just a date. Whenever it fits in your schedule.
Yeah. And during that time frame, it's just having quality us time. So whatever that looks like for you guys, and it doesn't have to be the same thing every time you do a date. Mix it up, find what is relaxing for you, or you enjoy doing something together. But it's a way to just, once again, connect with each other. Sometimes it may be a romantic way, sometimes it may not. And then being deliberate about just asking open-ended questions of each other. And if you don't know what questions to ask, I mean, there's 101 like date night books out there that are just, however many questions, 500 questions for you and your mate or whatever. Google something, just find it out. But you don't have to have the whole time doesn't need to be full of just questions, but plan for 1 or 2 open-ended questions. Open-ended meaning that the answer isn't just a yes or a no. It's got to be, you got to have a little bit more dialogue.
Quality time is so important to so many couples that we work with.
Absolutely.
And to us. We love quality time with one another.
We do.
But so many couples that we find that are struggling, it's because they've lost touch with this date night or
Mm-hmm.
date time every week where they can have the quality conversation, the we time, but also shared experience,
Mm-hmm.
enjoyable shared experience.
Right.
And so that's so important to have. And speaking of books and resources, one of our favorite lately has been 52 Dates. What's the official title? Do you have it off the top of your brain?
Oh, now you're 52 days. Oh
We
shoot.
have it outside the room, or
No, yeah, it's
I would pull it
downstairs
off
on
a
the coffee
shelf.
table. Oh,
Yeah.
good Lord. I forget, but it's
Yep.
52
Based off Gary Chapman's Five Love
dates.
Languages, another
Yes.
author has grabbed a hold of this. I'll tell you what,
But
here's what we do.
basically, yeah, go ahead.
Let's point people to on our YouTube channel. We
Mhm.
did our favorite marriage books.
Marriage books.
And
Mhm.
it's one of the favorite marriage books. So
It
folks,
is.
go to our YouTube channel, One Another Marriage,
Scroll back a little ways.
and you can find that one. We did
Yeah.
a video on several books, and
Yep.
that's one of those. Hey, another thing that happens, this can happen sometimes on a date night, but the sixth element
Mm-hmm.
of
Last one.
the last one
Mm-hmm.
is 1 hour once a week. So you're doing 2 hours for that date night, but this is a separate thing where you're taking 1 hour for a state of the union meeting, union being your marriage.
Yeah.
But a
right.
state of the union meeting is actually taking 1 hour every week just to spend an hour discussing areas of concern within the relationship. This is very much centered on helping process maybe sticky points, ouchy kind of
Mhm.
positions, and kind of like, this is an area that we really need to process. It's also an opportunity to share kind of fears and concerns in a way that you can feel heard and loved instead of feeling neglected. So this is really a wonderful moment to be able to have permission to share concerns with a request for change.
Mm-hmm.
And you can use so many tools. And we say, once again, we need to have the beauty of healthy relationships is they have tools they can use in their relationship and permission to use them. During the State of the Union, it's that time. That's one of the tools. Hey, babe, this is our time once a week that we can turn to each other and say, you know what, this is really where we can improve our relationship, or this is a concern I have. This is a conflict we need to resolve, or this is a minor thing I want to bring up, or there's a major thing that we need to really negotiate a mutually agreeable solution
Right.
to. And so that is the moment for some of those big moments. And if you know that it's kind of waiting and that you're intentional, it really gives you a strategy by which to process the inevitable
Mhm.
challenging points of being with this partner for life, right?
Yes. Yeah. And yeah, these are necessary. And I would also encourage, if you're, like you just said, if you're going to have a specific conversation, if you're calling it like the State of the Union meeting and you each know kind of like what that means, it gives that headspace for you to
Mhm.
position your chairs, like we talk about, in such a way that
Mhm.
you're in your thinking part of your brain and you're going to be able to like hear concerns, hear fears, hear something where, sometimes one person's just the listener at that point and hearing it. And the other challenge I would say is, if you want to include this conversation on a date night, then be very deliberate and clear about those expectations.
Excellent
Say, hey,
point.
we're going to go on this date night, and while we're going to have quality us time together and possibly inserting fun or doing something like that, we are going to take a little bit of time to also discuss this. And then make sure everybody's on the same page with at what point. How will that work best? Does it happen at the beginning of the date night and then we have our fun time? Does it happen at the end? Does it happen in the middle? But don't just think that you should include this type of stuff on your date night if the other person's like, well, that's supposed to be more connecting time, and this is kind of like, you just threw me for a loop on that one.
And from a practical point, we have one couple that we've grown to admire and love, and they have a weekly. Their Thursday night is their best night for a date night,
Mm-hmm.
and they do a Thursday night date night,
Right.
and now there's another time for State of the Union then.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you as a couple, you are considering pick a time that's regular for date night, but
Mm-hmm.
then maybe like a Saturday morning, maybe a
Right.
time that both of you are a little bit more relaxed. You've kind of shed the stress of the work week already,
Mm-hmm.
but it's up to you two, and that's for negotiating back and forth.
Absolutely.
So to break this down, before we do the verse of the day, to break this down, once a day, you're going to do two things. You're going to share appreciations and admirations, and then the second thing, appreciation, admirations is one thing, and then affection. That's the end of your day.
Right.
So the A's go every day: appreciation / admiration and affection. And then during your work week, 5 days a week, you're going to part from one another in a very intentional way, and you're going to come back together in a very intentional way.
That's right.
Partings and reunions.
Mm-hmm.
And then the final things that you're going to do are once a week, which is a date night and a State of the Union.
Right.
That makes up your 6 hours to a better relationship. And we really hope this has been helpful to you today. So, Theresa Mabry, what is the verse of the week?
Yeah, so I'm actually going to turn to Psalm 118, and this actually came from part of that Bible reading that I've been following and doing, but it just kind of stuck with me. So, verse 1, Psalm 118, verse 1, "Oh, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his steadfast love endures forever."
That's a good one.
And during Psalm 118, we come back to that phrase a couple of different times. For his steadfast love endures forever.
Yeah, we're so glad you all have joined us again this week. Some of you have been so faithful in listening week after week, and some of you have been so faithful also to rating and reviewing, liking, subscribing, whatever your platform calls for.
Right.
And so we really encourage you to go on, if you haven't done so already, go rate and review the podcast, subscribe,
share with others,
and finally share with others. We in fact, right now, we did this. We encouraged you last week to do this. We're going to encourage you again this week. Is right now, if you found value in this, consider who also may find value in this. What other relationship out there? Join together with us in strengthening couples for greater satisfaction and impact on the world around them by reaching over to that share button, hit that, and either text it to somebody, share on your social media, email it to somebody,
right.
But find some way of getting this information out to others, because we really would love to see as many folks strengthened as possible. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Bye-bye.